As Instagram Kaiba, one of the biggest questions that I always receive is if I own the SH Monster Art Blue Eyes Figure by Bandai. And over this past holiday season, I finally picked it up, and I'm really glad I did. This thing is advertised as something with almost infinite positioning capabilities, including the classic SDK artwork, which is what intrigued me the most. I'm not the biggest figure guy, but in my time, I've rounded up a pretty decent Blue Eyes collection, so it felt right to finally crack open the apex of all things Blue Eyes. And I'll tell you, I know I always say it, but it really did exceed all of my expectations. The Monster Art Blue Eyes is honestly as perfect as a figure/model can be. And that's really what it boils down to. It's not necessarily a figure, and it's not necessarily a model, it's somehow both. All of its joints are super functional and very liberal in what they allow you to do, including, and most impressively honestly, its wings. And that may not necessarily impress you, but what I found to be the coolest part about this is 9 times out of 10, once you strike that pose, it looks very natural in it. Switching from an action figure to a model real quick. That all being said, you know what time it is now. Time to strike that SDK pose. It's kind of funny, this actually took me a hot second to get it to pose and stand up properly. I think that's because the SDK artwork pose is just fuck all in its positioning. But honestly, the charm of this whole figure is that it can do it and do it really well. It looks fantastic. Little details like its mouth and tongue being able to move always add a nice little touch too. And you can even go above and beyond that with the stand that it comes with, including a burst stream of destruction. Now personally, I'm not a huge fan of these when figures can stand up and look badass on their own, but for the full effect, I will show you what this can pull off. The wings are held up by the 2 hands, albeit pretty loosely. Most of the heavy lifting is done by the main piece that holds up the abdomen. And of course, this is all it means to get Blue Eyes to look like he's attacking with his burst stream of destruction. Not gonna lie, I haven't seen it in its stand since I got it. It does actually look pretty badass, but it's not held up as securely as I would want from something that is as distracting as all these plastic pieces are. And the last thing you want to be is distracted by the overall beauty of the SH Monster Art figure line. Because as far as its art direction goes, there's a lot to be impressed with here. The classic anime Blue Eyes from our childhood is a very rich blue. This is emulated in a lot of the old school artworks, while the Dark Side of Dimension redesign is much more faithful to the white. And while the Monster Art figure line is pretty faithful to the modern take, it has a lot of old school charm. If I had to criticize one thing though, I will say that some of the joints do seem a little bit loose. I know that's a concern for people when they're buying these figures that have 1,000 different joints in them, but to be honest, I don't really think it's that deep. But if you don't vibe with that or its price point, have no fear, because there's a mini rendition of it that is also available. Bandai did release this model. It's not a figure, it doesn't move, that uses the exact same art design as the Monster Art line. And this is pretty cool. It's under half the price, so value-wise, I think it's totally worth it. But to be honest, if you're going for a Blue Eyes figure, I really feel like you should just take the plunge and grab the Monster Art line. There are a lot of Blue Eyes options out there, guys, but the Bandai Monster Art line takes the cake. 10 out of 10, I recommend picking this up.